So Dennis, tell us, why did you actually start Emmi?
We felt that we three make a good team. One, I think, two, have an idea about a great market opportunity, and then obviously clicked and felt like it's moving. So I think at the beginning we met at Miks AI, worked together for 9 to 12 months, and I think for the three of us it really clicked when we visited the US for 2 weeks, stayed in one Airbnb, shared rooms, trades, breakfasts, and everything, and had the feeling that we're up on something big, right? And ultimately, you start a company based off on a feeling, and then the rationals and the reasons come after. And that's a bit how everything started.
Johannes, for people outside of engineering, how would you explain what Emmi actually does and why this is important?
I would slightly derail this question, as I always do. I would say that engineering is not different than what we are seeing in coding from a revolution perspective. Basically, that you see these LLMs entering full scale, and then with all the fine tuning and all these agents starting now to appear, you really disrupt a whole vertical. And it is clear since 5 or 6 months that the same disruption is happening in engineering. It's just much harder than in language vision and now in coding, because there is many intricacies in engineering. Like everything is a splitter field. Everyone builds their own silos and so on and so forth. But similarly, you have this these ingredients which shout for this disruption. And Emmi was basically targeting the disruption, but mostly targeting the most time complex part of engineering, which is simulating realities.
And Miks, what becomes possible for engineers, and what are things that are now doable when you think in a world with Emmi that were not doable before?
That's $1 million question, I guess. To put it simple, I think in the perspective, I think it's about building the next generation of plane, car, faster and more better and precise. So Johannes already mentioned here about the long-standing bottleneck that the simulation has been in the innovation here, and we're actually taking the bottleneck away here, allowing engineers to explore design much faster, check whether in the physical world design that you just created will work. But it's not only about the speed up. This is also about getting the space where you can think about like digital twins, real-time operation controls. So actually changing the game here, not only from the design, but also when you go to the operational side of things. So it's much bigger than actually you can think about it on the face in the beginning when you look at it.
What were those trigger moments, maybe when you guys synced, or maybe also when you spoke to customers, that basically made you realize that there is more beyond simulation to really build an industrial engineering lab and really enable tons of use cases that are doable with Emmi's technology?
Yeah, I mean, we're still at the brink of starting the enablement and building capacity, but I think as an idea, a business evolves over time, ultimately, right? I think we started off with solely focusing on accelerating simulations. We've had the luck to have big customers from the start with Siemens Energy. And in these projects, you figure out and get a better understanding of what the real problem is for these customers. And simulation is just one little piece of the puzzle or of the whole value chain. So you naturally think, it's not about just solely accelerating one piece, but it's actually about helping these customers and big industrials to build better products faster.
And data-driven engineering, because you coined the term a bit, or large engineering models and industrial engineering lab, like what is, so to say, the vision of that when you think about it a few years down the road?
I think engineering is very much a process, as we see everywhere. We started the first actual simulations were when people started to build wind tunnels, when they realized it's not very sustainable for every plane to test in real world. You need something which mimics the real world. So people started to use wind tunnels, and at some point they started to put the simulation of wind tunnels into a computer. And the next step is to replace this most expensive part of this simulation with AI. And then it goes further and further and further. The problem with all this is that you need some data to learn from that. And this data is very costly and is very cumbersome. Not only the data you need for producing simulations, but also the data you measure outside, the sensor data and so on and so forth, which certifies if the simulation you're doing makes sense, but also which can be fused with the simulation data. So it's all about the data and not so much in the way that we can scrape the internet and just bunch it together into documents and tokenize it. It's more that you really have to be very, very careful what you put in and how you structure this data. And this is actually the unlock how you achieve bigger things in the future. And it's also not a coincidence that we see a twofold revolution. We see a revolution in the CAE, so in the computer-aided engineering world, where people start to accelerate via GPUs, where a numerical solvers, numerical software gets ported to GPUs. And on the other hand, we see AI models trained on this data. So data in that sense is really, really different than to all other fields, because it needs to be generated to enable intelligence. And that's why data engineering intelligence is for me the word to be used here.
I want to switch a bit to what this means also in the context of Europe and the world. And then, and you're building this out of Europe. What do you think are the advantages of Europe when it comes to especially industrial AI and also the things Johannes just described?
I mean, I think you see the core of Europe sitting on the couch, right? So we have 3 different nationalities living in 3 different countries, striving for the same goal ultimately. So I think the biggest advantage of Europe is talent and talent density and the universities that we have and everything that comes out of it. So there's nothing that we have to hide. I think most important is to build from Europe for the world and not just lock ourselves in, right? We know that we have governmental regulatory constraints that we need to live with, but it's a given, and I think we are here to really, make Europe heart of the AI revolution for the industry.
And Johannes, back to you on when you hear this and the things also that you described. So there's a lot of talk about the AI race basically is already over. There are already the winners. Some say we're actually only at the early days, and there's a lot of things that are actually still not doable. First of all, how do you see that? And also, secondly, what do you think is, so to say, Europe's position in that race, and what are our superpowers, and what are maybe areas where we can be a global winner?
First of all, I think that AI is nothing else than a tool. So you build AI toolings to make things better, faster, whatever. So what we see currently in coding, you build coding tools such that you can help software engineers having a better, faster life. And if you look at manufacturing engineering at its core, as it sits in Europe, we are the ones who can apply those tools. So we will be the ones who modify these tools, who apply these tools, who change these tools, and who work with these tools. So it's very natural that if you have all the industry around manufacturing set up in Europe, if you're the one building the tools yourself, you're the one who really unlock the next stage of this process. So I think industrial engineering is a super great fit for Europe because tools and market really well fit together. And without market, tools are relatively useless and the other way around.
Yeah, and maybe Miks, the talk of today, so to say, Mistral is also building great tools. So what actually made you click at the first place to basically say, hey, why actually let's explore this avenue, let's maybe work together, let's maybe intensify that collaboration. Like what were those moments for you personally?
I think if you look at our mission or vision and what we actually started with already, Dennis and Johannes spoke about it, I think it really feels like a next, unlocking the next stage for us and actually combining the work together on a really, truly global stage already now. Mistral obviously having the power of that they have already the core research and science so deeply, and technology that they bring, compute power, and then us coming in also here with a strong focus on engineering and industrial vertical. I think it's really making a true powerhouse that can actually tackle this market together. I think from day one, meeting the people, we felt that there is strong chemistry, very alike thinking about how we are seeing company needs to be built further. So it was not like a big challenge for us from that perspective to think about, hey, is this really a good decision for us or not? So I think it was a very organic process for us, and looking at the future, definitely see that only good things coming from good to great.
And for you guys, any specific moments or any meetings or any experience that made you realize, okay, maybe that's a good fit, maybe this is what I want to do?
I think maybe more from a strategic perspective. I mean, every company at every financing round has to fulfill certain requirements. And I think for us, it's clear that I think from seed to now, we built, I think, one of the world leading labs in AI for engineering from a technology and research perspective. But there are two things that I think the next step would have to unfold, or we would have to solve, which on the one hand is capacity from a compute perspective. On the other hand is kind of the access to top tier companies and the go-to-market motion. And we just felt that I think that's a perfect fit joining Mistral, because these two things they do have, and they're leading in the world and in Europe on that perspective. And we can build a vertical that then basically put together will be the leading AI for engineering lab in the world.
And what are things that they can now do that they could not without the team at Emmi?
I think engineering is much more complex than just simulation, what we can provide. But simulation and data-driven simulation is the core for everything else, like for computer-aided design, computer-aided engineering, obviously for agentic workflows, for fusing sensor data with simulation, meaning building digital twins. And suddenly this whole plethora of possibilities opens up, and you just need to listen to the high-stake customers in Europe, or the high-stake tech companies. They all want the same things. And suddenly these things are not hypothetical, and maybe we can do that in 2 years. Suddenly things are, okay, we start them now. And this is quite exciting.
And I mean, you guys are VC-backed companies, right? That's our business in the end of the day. So first of all, what made you actually choose VC money? And also, what were your criteria back then when you started to choose your investors?
I still remember when we met you first. I think it was a dark afternoon of December 2024. We were already on this journey to attract VC money. I think we were quite advanced already in the process by then, but we're looking for really partners that can open us the doors really in the global stage to the A customers, also potential partners, and also can fund the growth story that we want to build here. And not from the perspective only that, hey, here is the money, now you run and burn it, but really help us to achieve that our growth stages and that we were looking for. And I think from the first meeting already, we were really positively impressed by the team quality that you guys brought for us, I think, because many says, hey, I can connect you and bring you to the right connections. But I think we felt that you, first of all, are serious about this intent, and also that you look into deep also on the topic. Not many other investors who are bringing in other experts that can actually ask good quality questions on the topic and the technology, who are used to invest in deep tech companies that doesn't bring immediately revenue target in the first year, but more focused on the team, on the technology. And I think we really felt that there is a good chemistry in that sense. And looking back, also can only confess that it was fully fulfilled, I would say.
It's great to hear. And I mean, but are there things, there's a lot of discussion, right, always about our own job. Like, is it actually really something we can contribute, or is it our job to cheer at the sideline? Like, what do you guys think? What are the things VCs can really be? And there's this famous Twitter page where said, how can I be helpful? That's what VCs always ask. So how can VCs actually be really helpful in your view?
I think I can break this here for especially you, Andy, and Speed Invest. I think the two of us, we ping-ponged a lot over the last months what to do, and especially when it came to the acquisition. And that was very, very different to the VC game I knew before that, because this is like really advice you gave, and this was very helpful. And actually, suddenly you can consider what decisions you take, and that's the big difference in a VC game. If somebody really advises you, or if somebody really tries to just maximize for the fund, and I think that's the only difference I noticed, and what would make me choose a VC in the future or not.
Yeah, I mean, we deliberately, I think, choose the VC track because one, I think we knew we have to be fast, right? And you can only accelerate things when you have the money. We knew that we'll not be profitable in this business right from the start. And I think two, we knew that the opportunity is massive. And these are the two unlocks to pick VC. And I think this is the strategic value you can bring to us ultimately, right? You have money, just go, and there's trust. Which we clearly felt. I think the second layer, which Johannes laid out, is the more operational layer, which is very, I think, fragile, right? You can either annoy or you can help. And I think to find this balance is always tricky.
Now, if you would start over again, or maybe if there's a founder who is thinking about whose money to take, like what would be your recommendation to those founders? Maybe in like 2 sentences.
I think picking a VC generally is always, the gut feeling needs to fit, right? So you need to feel, there's no way in like 2 months of due diligence that you can deliberately figure out if the VC fits to you, right? So ultimately you have to make the judgment based on a feeling and based on kind of slight qualification of the process. And usually the process of how is the DD running? How much do they stick to their promises? Right? Even little things like how on time are they in the meetings, right, when it starts? I think it all gives you an indication of will this fit going forward, right? And I think this is where you have to make a judgment on.
Any last famous words you guys want to add?
It's not ending, Andy.
Yes,
The path to
just
IPO is starting, right?
That's true.
Yes.
I think that's the perfect ending sentence. Yes.
Yeah, I would say that my personal feeling is that there's one term which is always used by researchers, and that's I work in a frontier lab. I think we can very proudly say that Mistral is probably on the brink to become the first and probably biggest frontier lab in industrial engineering. And we will break boundaries there. And that personally, first of all, makes me proud because this comes out of Emmi. And secondly, it also makes me super excited.
I think that's a perfect way to end the conversation. Thank you guys for taking the time.
Thanks, Andy, for having us.